Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Mysticsense series on angels. Today with us is Angel Reader from Mystic. To start off our session, we have a question for our viewers to answer in the comments. What could be more comforting than the love and guidance of angels in the midst of life's journey? So let's dive right into our subject today. Before we get started, could you please share a little bit about yourself and your spiritual practice?
Sure. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. So I obviously have been able to see, feel, and hear angels since birth. And so as a result of that, I could feel the angels. I read the energies behind everything versus the actual form itself. So when I tune into other people, I could see their energies and see what's going on and help them to be able to expand into greater levels of their own truth. I'm also a certified hypnotist and author, and I have been doing this as a calling my whole life, as far as an adult getting paid for it, of course. But my spiritual gifts is something that takes me to a higher plane, because I'm able to see the angels. I go above people's energy and look into their energy versus going directly in their energy so that they don't feel invaded. And then I also do numerology with numbers to help people understand what's going on, from the angels giving messages through the numbers. So that's another thing that I also do.
Wonderful. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah.
Um, if you've been following our podcast, you know we did have an episode on angel numbers specifically, I believe, 2 weeks from this one previously. So go ahead and if you enjoyed that, you can go ahead and watch that. But today we're going to be diving into the angels themselves. So our first question is, what role do
That's a really great question. The most important thing to remember is that angels are messengers. They're here to support you on your mission. They're here to give you clarity. They're here to show you what you can do differently. The thing that they're not here to do, which many people think they are, is they can't intervene with the lesson at hand. In other words, they can't do the lesson for you, learn the lesson for you. The only thing they could do is help you through the lesson by giving you guidance and clarity and comfort, and of course, lots of love while you're learning that lesson that you came here to learn.
Wonderful. So let's go a little deeper into that. What can they do and not do in regards to humans here?
Can you say, because you went out?
Oh, what can they do and not do with regards to humans?
What's important for them to do is to really make sure that they're going within their own self. If they allow their ego to run their life, then they get caught up in the fears, the insecurities, the self-doubts, the negativities, and then they stay caught up in that groundhog effect and repeat those lessons. So what is important for them to do is always move through every single lesson by focusing on gratitude, acceptance, love, and allowing. And then when I say about acceptance, it's not about accepting it as if you just surrender and give up and not do anything about it. It's about not resisting it, fighting it, or coming to a place of resistance around it. It's so important to know that when you let go of the attachments behind the lesson and you stay focused in on moving through the lesson by embracing it, you get what is called an epiphany, which is a greater understanding to help you to move through it and become wiser rather than not become wiser and having to repeat it over and over and over again. The most important thing to remember is anything that you judge, you will continue to repeat. This is a vibrational planet. So your thoughts, your emotions, and your body have those vibrations either in the elevated place of love or in the lower vibrations of fear and insecurity and negativity. And part of that is to help move it into a higher vibration so that your life becomes more flowing rather than fighting it and staying stuck like quicksand in it and then falling down into the quicksand. because you're not loving it enough and you're hating it, or you're fearing it, or resisting it, and thereby it continues to repeat.
Interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the law of attraction that we've discussed previously in another
Yes.
episode. But these things that we keep focusing on, revisiting, they keep happening.
And with the law of attraction, it has a point to it, is that sometimes with the law of attraction, people use it to kind of control an outcome. With the law of attraction, that's important to understand is that when you flow in the vibration of aligning with the higher power of love, some call Christ, some call God, some call the universe, when you align with that, then the attraction actually vibrates at a higher place than it would if you try to control it from your ego, because your ego has belief systems. Some serve you, some don't. Some you're consciously aware of, some you're unconsciously aware of. And if they're coming from a vibration with an underlying fear or insecurity or negativity or anything that is caught up in those energies, then the outcome will come from that lower vibration. So you end up getting what you don't want, which is why people say the law of attraction doesn't work for me, because they're vibrating at the lower vibration and trying to control it from their belief systems of their ego, and thereby creating the programs to repeat those areas. Whereas if they let go of the control around it and they align more with the universe's vibration and kind of partner in that sense, then what happens is you end up attracting it at a higher vibration of what it is, like prosperity consciousness. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at the law of attraction, when it comes to people that are very successful and that have a lot of money, and then they lose it all, they immediately, within weeks or maybe months, get it again, because their consciousness doesn't fall into the limitations around it. They stay aligned with the truth that the universe is the source and the supply. Everything comes from that vibrational frequency within you first, through others versus directly from others. And that's what makes it a shift in a vibration.
Very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. So our next question is, what is the role of the archangels? Discuss the roles of Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Uriel.
Many people are familiar more with Michael and Raphael than they are with Uriel and Gabriel. Gabriel is more of an information gathering type of a person. So let's say you're stuck in this quandary of not knowing what to do and you need more clarity. Gabriel is the archangel that would help bring that kind of clarity in the information. And Uriel is very earthbound. So if you're stuck in conflict, if you're stuck in, he's the one that brings that sense of inner peace and calmness and helps you to relax. Now, Michael is the most popular one, and then comes Raphael. Raphael has to do more with, and I love to use the cord cutting as an example. So let's say you're in the midst of a lesson and you're learning that lesson. You finally start to move through that lesson and you're getting towards the completion of that lesson. So then Raphael would come in and help you to learn through the expansion of what is behind the lesson. And that's where the epiphany comes in, the greater understanding and awareness. And then Michael comes in with his good old sword and starts cutting away those cords of those old belief systems so that you don't have the groundhog effect around it. So Michael is the one that helps you with your purpose, your calling, protection, and helps you to cut away those old cords once Raphael says, you're done.
Well, yes, that's a nice way to explain it, how they all work together in unison for our growth.
Yes.
Yes, very interesting. And I also am one of those people that don't really know much about Uriel and not so much Gabriel, but I familiar with Michael, and so that's great that you brought that out too. They all have a role for us.
Yes.
Yes, excellent. So our next section is about connecting with the angels. What can I do to connect better with the angels?
Okay, the first thing that is so important to understand is, and remember, I speak energy, so I'm going to speak it in the energy format and help me out if I'm not clear. So let's say we're in the midst of learning a lesson, and it's important to understand that Earth is considered to be Earth school. It's a school that you come to learn to become wiser, so that when you leave, you don't take the body or the money or anything, you take the wisdom that you've gotten from that experience. So that's one of the things to remember, that when you're going through these lessons, you're first starting off with your ego, because you're identifying with the belief systems of your mind, and thereby the emotions kick in, and thereby your body gets all stressed out, and you're stuck in the denser vibrations. So you can't connect with the angels as well, because you're too caught up in your head, you're too caught up in your stories, you're too caught up in the emotions behind the stories, and you're too caught up in the stress behind it. Now, angels fly, they don't ground. They fly high into the higher frequencies. So in order to get to that place, you have to first be willing to let go of the control around the ego. And the first way to do that is to realize you're not your thoughts, you experience your thoughts. You're not your emotions, you experience your emotions. And you're not your body, you experience the sensations of your body. And you either vibrate from your ego's programs, the belief systems, or you vibrate from your inner spirit. When you first come in, you're a spirit having a human incarnation. And when you're caught up in the ego's vibration, you can't connect as high with feeling, hearing, or even seeing the angels, because your vibration isn't as high. But when you start to let go and you start to mature in these areas that you came here to learn, and become smarter, wiser, and more connected to the higher vibrations of love and gratitude and peace, then your connection becomes higher in the frequency. And then you can start to subtly feel them, hear them, or see them. Does that make sense?
Yes, I hope it makes sense to everyone. From my understanding, to kind of simplify or repeat back, the process of how to better connect with the angels lies in overcoming the ego and becoming more in tune with our spirit self.
Yes, and some of the ways to do that is through meditation, through eating healthy, letting go of any addictive patterns, drugs, alcohol, etc. Making sure your body's relaxed, making sure you stay in gratitude with your mind so that you're not caught up in the story, making sure you love yourself with your emotions so you're more in that vibration of love. Remember, angels vibrate from a vibration of love, and love is the highest vibration. So anytime you're stressed out, caught up in the mental stories, caught up in negativity or judgment, you can't feel them as well because you're not in the vibration of love. Does that make greater sense?
Yes, I think it helps clarify. Hopefully it helps clarify for some of our viewers.
It's a common question. Many people understand it when I explain it the way I just did. So hopefully we'll see how the audience works. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's talk a little more about Earth School, and why is it called the Earth School?
You know, when we first came in as spiritual beings, right, reincarnated, and then before we got caught up in our mental stuff or our emotional stuff or the physical beliefs around what we came here to learn, we're a pure spirit. It's joy and love and so forth. Then you come in and you're birthed into your parents' DNA and all the lessons that they learned. And then you take on what you came here to learn. So as you're going through day-to-day life, you're becoming smarter with those programs that haven't matured or aren't working at a higher vibration, that have maybe more fear attached to it, or more insecurity attached to it, or more negativity attached to it, or more judgments attached to it. Those are called like hook-ins, right? And so in those like hook-ins, those belief systems that aren't serving you, Earth is a way of teaching you how to become smarter. I mean, if you think about it, have you ever, felt really good and all of a sudden you meet somebody and then you get triggered by that person something pushes a button in you and you want to react, or you want to tell them off, or you want to go fight, flight, hide. Those are all parts of what Earth School is trying to teach you, that there's something there for you to learn. It's easy to blame the other person than to look inside yourself and say, what is this person triggering inside of me to help me to learn, to help me to become smarter, to help me to become more loving? And if you take it to an advanced place, again, back to energy, if you look at, instead of the person or the repeated pattern of people, if you look at the energy of what's behind it, what's the familiar pattern, what's the continual repeating experience that's going on, then you can actually transmute the energy behind that belief quicker than talking about it and dwelling on it and complaining about it and focusing through therapy by talking about it, and then you're stuck in the story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. The root cause of what is the continuation, or the common denominator.
Yes.
That makes sense
Yes.
to me personally.
Yes. And looking at it from an energy point rather than an actual story, like it's them, it's the person, the story. Let go of the story and look at what's the energy, what's the repeated thing. Is it that you never felt love? That's an energy. Is it that you felt hate? You never felt accepted, you felt judged. Those are energies, versus this person said this, did this, and the story behind it keeps repeating, and so forth. And then, of course, I love saying this to people: forgive them, for they not know any better. It's where their consciousness is at. Doesn't condone the behavior, but it does set you free, because if you judge it, you become one with that of which you're judging. But if you embrace it through forgiveness, then you're moving past the story into the experience of realizing it's their lesson, and you don't have to join them in the misery loves company party.
Yeah, I like that too, how you worded that. We're not accepting what happened, but we're also acknowledging that it is present, that it happened. And letting it go is important too.
Exactly. A lot of times it's when you're in relationship, that's usually when the buttons, what I call buttons, get triggered the most, because you're dealing with an intimacy, you're dealing with core areas. And in those core areas, that's where the triggers become the greatest, rather than just an acquaintance passing by, wouldn't know you as well, so it wouldn't trigger those core areas that you came here to learn in Earth School. And so past buyers, I call them, aren't as big of triggers, unless, of course, you're dealing with the core area. Then they probably will trigger you as well, because that core area is finally at the root, that you could pull it out and be done with it, right? So that's the blessing, is that when you're at the core area, you're literally, if you think of a tree, you're at the root of the tree. You're pulling that piece out, and it's finally getting done. And there comes Raphael to cut away and Michael to say you're done. And so you've completed that lesson, you become more mature, and you're ready to move on to advanced school.
Wonderful. So why is it that some people can hear, feel, or see or sense the angels, while others can't or have more difficulty?
It goes back to that comment of, when you're too caught up in your mind, we have right here what I call the third eye, right? So here is where your intuition is. Here's where your psyche is. But if we're caught up in our head, and we're caught up in the stories, then we're caught up in those vibrations that are really at a lower vibration. And so we're stuck in the mind, the beliefs. We're stuck in it. It's almost like we're in a cave and we're sleeping in that story. And so the angel can go, "Hi, I'm here." And you're like, "I'm too caught up in my head. I don't hear a thing. I don't see anything," because you're too caught up in the chatter, and you're not opening your ears to hear it. You're too busy talking in your head.
Yes, interesting. It reminds me of that quote that we have two ears but one mouth. Have you heard that?
Yes.
We're supposed to listen twice as much as we talk, because even mentally, that mental chatter can drown out the sound of the intuition or the guidance or the angel.
And it's also another saying, let go of your senses, and then you come to the real truth. The senses are the physical mind, emotions, body, and you get a greater connection to the angels because you're vibrationally expanded where you feel them from a place of love rather than from a place of fear. Again, angels don't drop into those lower vibrations. They wait for you to rise above so that you could feel them in these higher vibrations. They won't join your misery. They'll only guide you out of the misery.
Very interesting. I like that when you mentioned the angels have the wings, they fly above these lower energies. They don't ground themselves.
Yeah.
I like that too. It makes a lot of sense to me that, you have to do the work to climb out of this. They can only guide you so far.
Right. Yeah. They're not there to intervene in that capacity. And that's why I love saying angels fly, we don't ground, because
Yes,
they're not going to get stuck in those draining vibrations.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. So what are some practical exercises that can help with the connection to the angelic realm?
I find that meditation is one of the greatest tools to help you. And if you go into your favorite sacred site like nature, the beach, most of the time when you're in nature or at the beach, you don't really focus in on, or even when you're on a vacation, you don't really focus in on your problems or your stories. You're focusing on the moment, the now, and enjoying it. So you're not focusing on what if in the past or what I could have from the future. You're focusing in on the now, which is where your power is. And when you focus in on the now and you're connecting from that place of love and gratitude, it's easier to do stuff where you could feel them and you could feel the expansiveness. But if you're caught up in the chatteredness, you're not able to experience it as much. So meditation is one of the most wonderful tools to help to quiet the mind, calm the emotions, and relax the body.
Beautiful. And that power of now, that mindfulness, that being present, it is really a very powerful tool to get us out of that past or present, or not present, but past or future living. Because that present moment is what we can control.
Exactly.
The rest of it may have happened or may have not happened yet, but it's out of our control regardless.
I'm always like not laughing at the person, but laughing when a person says, when will I meet my love of my life? And when will I get this job? And I always comment and say, well, if you had a calendar and I said on December 31st at 2024 at 5 o'clock in the morning, sit by the phone, it's going to ring. Does that make sense to you? And they go, no. I said, it's not really based on a calendar, which is linear time. It's all made up anyway. We turn our clocks backwards and forwards. It's based on the lesson. You can ask someone, when will I become a runner? And then they sit there and they go to sleep and they don't do anything. You're never going to become a runner. You have to be willing to get up, put the shoes on, put the clothes on, and do one step at a time. It's the same thing with a relationship. You have to prepare yourself for that person. You have to be willing to mature those parts of yourself that aren't matured so that you have more of what I call a soul vibrational relationship rather than a karmic growth one based on the egos fighting against each other. If your souls are more active, your spirit is more active, you have more of a soulmate relationship. But you can't have that unless you prepare yourself for it, just like this other person. So the when and the how and the where is more of the divine timings business, not your business. Your business is to get yourself ready for that person. And that's what the angels are able to help you get there.
Very true. Time is, just a made up energy. I truly believe that. And like doing spiritual work, it's important to move beyond these human constructs and to, see the energies and the picture of what's going on. So what is ego control versus spiritual enlightenment?
Ego control is when your physical programs are trying to make things happen, trying to get caught up in the linear time of the past and the future and trying to force something to come about, trying to make a goal come. trying to make a relationship be what you want it to be, expecting them to communicate the way you want them to communicate, expecting them to behave the way you feel they should behave. That's all ego control. The belief systems, when you give it your power and you feed it, is ego control, because what happens is you're caught up in the sleep mode behind those programs and you identify with them as if that's who you are. So that's all ego control. When you start moving into these places of love, self-love, gratitude, expansiveness of taking responsibility for your own growth, maturing yourself to a point of realizing that you're not your thoughts, you experience it. You're not your emotions, you experience it. You're not your body, you experience it. So you don't have to be a victim to it. You can actually take responsibility and evolve through those experiences in a greater way. Then you're more on a spiritual journey, because you're not identifying with yourself as who those beliefs are, but rather realizing those beliefs are lies that you've been giving your power to.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Taking back that control of our life through letting go of what we think that we need, what we think we are, and seeing, who we truly are, where we're meant to be on our soul path.
I always love to say this because if you think about it, it makes sense, right? You come in with this naivety, right, of just love, right? Then you get caught up in everything you came here to learn, and you get caught up in sometimes agitation, frustration, blaming, judging, hating, blaming. And then you get caught up, that's the ego, right? Then you start moving past all of that and you start moving towards love all over again. But now instead of being the naive person that you were born into, you have all this wisdom that you take with you as you move towards love. So it's like you're making a full circle into love again at a higher vibration of wisdom. Again, back to Earth School. What you learn, you take with you in the vibration of higher love.
Oh, yes. It goes around and around and around and around, sometimes a few times.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what prevents people from feeling empowered in life?
When they get caught up in their fears, their insecurities, their victim consciousness, blaming, judging. It's all about them. You know that saying, you point your finger where the other three fingers going? Back at you. You see what I'm saying? The three fingers pointing back at you. So if you point a finger, it's your fault. Where's the other three fingers pointing? At you.
Huh.
So it's not about them. It's more when you get triggered, it's not about them. It's more about you, because you're too caught up in blaming another person. And usually when you react to something, there's something there for you to learn. When you respond, that means there's something there for them to potentially to learn if they react. And so a lot of times people don't realize that it's so important to get out of the victim consciousness and the fears and the insecurities and the negativities and the blaming and the judging, and really start taking responsibility for your own life instead of caretaking or overgiving in order to get. There's that saying, you give love to get love. That's conditional love. If you give me the love and you give it to me the way I want it, I love you. But if you don't give it to me the way I want you, it's your fault. That's conditional love. But when you get to a place of more of the mature love, it's called unconditional love. So I may not like what you're doing, but there's still an unconditional love behind it. And you're not blaming, you're talking about the we mentality. What can we do to get this relationship working from a place of a we, rather than you do it my way or no way, which is conditional love.
Yes, lots of wisdom there. And we need to ask ourselves, what is our motivation for doing this as well? I feel. Are you doing something because you want people to feel a certain way about you or do a certain thing, or are you just doing it because it's the right thing to do, because you feel like that's what needs to be done? Excellent.
That's unconditional love. When you do something, and then it's unconditional, there's no expectation of a return. But when you do something because you want a return of some kind, then you're doing it with an expectation. And I always say to people, if you expect something, you'll get disappointed, because you're expecting them to behave a certain way or do something a certain way. If you anticipate it, it's different. But if you're expecting an outcome majority of the time you're going to get disappointed because you're having some kind of control behind the way you think it should look or the way it should be, and it may not turn out that way. And then who gets blamed? Not yourself. You blame the other situation or the person.
Yes, very good points. In fact, last week's episode, we touched a little bit on the difference between the expectation and the anticipation, or the awareness. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that as well? The anticipation versus expectation?
When a person expects something, again, it goes back to their own personal belief systems. Because what's happening is they may go into a relationship and it's so fine and dandy during the honeymoon phase. You know, everything is perfect. You like what they're doing. They like what you're doing. And then all of a sudden you start getting intimate with them and you get close, and all the stuff that you like, you don't like anymore. Because you have this expectation of wanting them to be the same way they were when you were in the honeymoon phase. But all of a sudden, their shadow parts of themselves are coming out. The parts of themselves that may not be so perfect, that may not be so loving, because they're here to learn in relationship with you, and you're here to learn in relationship with them. So the perfection is no longer there that you originally thought, and that this person had originally thought. And all of a sudden, you're sitting there going, what happened? Everything was so perfect. You were doing exactly the way I expected you to behave, and now all of a sudden you're not doing it the way I want you to do it. You screwed up this relationship. It's all your fault. If you just do it the way I tell you to do it, then everything will be perfect. If you just do what I tell you to do, we'll be happy. That's the expectation. And then the other person says, well, if you just do it the way I do it, then I'll be happy. So it comes back to the me and you, this whole of doing it my way around it. When you come from a place of unconditional acceptance, unconditional love, mutual respect, working together and anticipating a positivity around it, but not expecting it to be a certain way, but rather allowing it to be the way it's intended to be, there's more of a flow in the relationship. So there's no control around how they should talk, how they should behave. It's more about mutually respecting and working together to have fun in the relationship rather than working at the relationship.
Thank you for elaborating on that. It's definitely something I feel a lot of us can take to heart. So our next question here is, how can I make my life more enjoyable and peaceful with angelic guidance?
The biggest thing that I tell people is, if you really truly want to be happy in life, then let go of the drama around life. Let go of the over caretaking. Let go of expecting things to behave a certain way. I heard this the other day and I just loved what I heard. So this is what this is. And then you do the Jello dance behind it. Versus, oh my God, this is what it is. And then you start judging it and making the person wrong or the situation bad. It's like, say you're driving and all of a sudden you're stuck in traffic. So this is what this is. Oh, well, now I can just relax, take some deep breaths, maybe focus on conscious thinking of things I'm grateful for, rather than looking at the traffic. Oh my gosh, when am I going to get through this traffic? I want to get home. I want to eat dinner. Start yelling at the people, get out of the way, get out of the way. And then you want to cut them off and go into a carpool lane just to get home. That's controlling, and who's not happy here? So when you get to a place of, oh, this is what it is, and just going, okay, well, let's make this work. Let's find the positives behind this, and choosing to be happy rather than choosing to judge or blame something or someone around something that you label as unpleasant.
Yeah, that traffic example kind of reminds me of yesterday. I was out doing things, running errands, and I was stuck in a line and I was feeling irritated. I waited and I asked myself, why am I irritated? Because I don't have a deadline. This store is not closing for hours. Why am I irritated about being in this long line? And I couldn't think of anything, So it was like, okay, it was just kind of this accepting moment of, okay, this is fine. Things didn't go out as I planned. Um, you know, just sit with that, be peaceful with it. So this is some me time. Think of it as like the universe is giving you this allotted time period out of your control to focus on what you need to think about, what you need to focus on yourself, without any other distractions. And I feel like that can really change the approach we have to delays in general.
It reminds me when you were saying that, like when there's a line at the post office, right? That's usually when people get really antsy. So when I'm at the post office, if there's a line, I always turn around and say, "Hey, does anybody have a good joke to say?" And I'll start saying a funny joke, and then people will start laughing. I'm like, "Who wants to join me next?" And the next thing you know, the line's moving, and everybody's in a good mood. So it's like you could be the leader in the situation of being online. It may not be to say, let's have a joke, but you could just sing or focus in on, because people will feel it. Perfect example, if you go into a room filled with people that are depressed and crying, and then you get out of that room and you go into a room filled with people laughing and happy, which room do you think you're going to feel the happiest in? The room that's depressing and sad and crying, or the room that is laughing and focusing on what they're grateful for?
Yes, very true. And I feel like it goes beyond just what people are doing, but also just the essence, the energy of that mutual support really enhances the mood and the overall experience.
That's why I read energy.
Yeah,
That's why the angels do the energy. If you think about it, when somebody is focused in on what's going on in that room, that's energy. It's all energy. Everything on this planet is energy. The trees are energy. What each person is energy. We're just covered with a form behind that energy.
very true. And that's a lot of times the aura as well. People refer to it as the aura or even the energy of space. So I have a little question for you about the different types of angels. What is your view on the different types of angels? We talked about the archangels.
Then there are fairy angels. The fairy angels are the happy angels. There's also your guardian angel. And one of the things that I get asked a lot with regard to the guardian angels is, can you have a different guardian angel? Like, you're born with a guardian angel. Can you get a different guardian angels? And I've actually discovered that that's a possibility that could happen. And the reason why that could happen is because when you get to a point of maturing yourself, right, from your ego, you start off with maybe having more of a, I'll just call it, just for an example, more of an earth guardian angel. But then when you start moving on your spiritual path, and this personally has happened to me, that's why I know it's happened, you all of a sudden start to attract high evolved angels. So your guardian angel can actually shift from an earth guardian angel to more of an ethereal guardian angel that now takes you to a different plane, a different vibration, and you actually feel them even more so because you're connected to them even more, which kind of goes to that other question that was asked about how can I connect more with them. So as you mature vibrationally from your ego and you start moving more into your spiritualism, being more active, then the angels start to shift as well. And so the archangels, you may start to have a better relationship with different archangels like Metatron. I talk to Metatron all the time. A lot of people ask, where is Metatron? Metatron is like a hummingbird that comes and goes, takes you through portals, takes you through veils, that helps you to get into these higher vibrational frequencies. As if you think about it, Earth is linear, past and present and future, right? But when you get into these portals, they're expansive vibrations that have multidimensional timelines, parallel timelines. Some of them are expansive. So you can actually experience deja vu because you went through a vibrational portal and actually experience something. Hey, I thought I experienced this before. It was a time warp that you went through that actually your brain didn't catch up to it. And so it made you feel like you've experienced it already. And so it's the same thing with these angels, when you start moving through these higher vibrations, you start seeing and feeling them at different vibrational frequencies. You start meeting more different types of angels, the fairy angels, the archangels, the guardian angels, and all of that.
Very interesting. I do like Archangel Metatron. He's one of my favorite angels personally. Do you have anything else you'd like to add about Archangel Metatron specifically? Because we mentioned Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Uriel. And what about some other archangels as well?
I mostly work with Metatron and Michael, and then Raphael. I do work with a lot of angels, the feminine angels, especially right now, because a lot of people are having some challenges with love. So I don't really get caught up in labels. Michael, Raphael, Uriel, they're all a Metatron. They're all identified with names, but it always cracks me up when people get caught up in the names. That's just, again, a form. They're energies. That's what they are. They're not identified as a form. People gave them that identification because it helps people to relate to them. Like Metatron works at a higher vibration with more of the spirituality of people than they are with their ego. So if people are still too caught up in their ego and focused more on their fears and hate and negativities, Metatron doesn't go into that vibration. So you may not know Metatron until you start focusing more, which is why you have because you're very loving, which is one of the reasons why you have a great respect for Metatron, because Metatron works with very loving people and very vibrationally high people. And so the more loving you are, the more he's going to, I'm saying it's probably just call him an energy, because that's basically what Metatron is. The more Metatron will be in your presence.
Interesting. Thank you for that insight. I do like Metatron. I'm fascinated by the sacred geometry as well as the time aspect of Metatron. That's kind of what I'm fascinated by, is because we briefly mentioned earlier that time is an illusion. Really, it's made up. Someone decided there was 60 seconds in a minute and there was 60 minutes in an hour. But Metatron kind of transcends that, for me at least.
And Metatron definitely works very differently than Michael and Raphael and Uriel. Metatron is more, or even Gabriel, Metatron is more of a, what I would label, for me, in my experience, is more of a time warping, portal, veil, expansive energy. I mean, every time Metatron comes in the sessions that I do, it's like so different than when Michael is involved or Raphael, because Metatron will do time warps, timelines of expansiveness, and it's very different.
Yes. Do you have anything what are your views and opinions on the guardian angel? Sorry, I worded that kind of strangely.
No, I get what you're saying. It's okay the way, like I said, I read the energy behind the question, so it's all perfect. Guardian angels are, to me, the way I define them is they're there for you, with you through thick and thin, right? So they're there to make you aware of when you lost your way and to get you back on track. They're there to help you to stay inspired when you feel disillusioned or in despair. They're there to show you love when you feel helpless or sad or uncomfortable. So guardian angels are there to, in a sense, to protect you. But again, just to be clear, and again, they're not there to intervene with the lesson. They're only there to help you through the lesson with greater love, guidance, and clarity, more so than archangels and so forth. They're more like the forefront of direct contact, and the angels and the archangels are kind of behind the guardian angel, in my experience, with helping people through life.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So with your sessions, with your angelic sessions, how does that look for someone that would be a client potentially?
As an angel reader, I get the month and day of the person's birthday. And then I go on to what is called a timeline. So if they're asking about a relationship, for example, so I'll go into the timeline of both that person and then the other person's birthday. And I tune into the angels and I see vibrationally what lessons they've learned and what lessons they're stuck in and what's creating the conflict or the reason the relationship ended or separated, why they came back. So rather than giving a prediction or a mind reading or how are they, I always get this question, how does this person feel about me? What are they thinking? And it just cracks me up because it's like, well, let's see. In about 5 seconds, you changed your thoughts, or even in a second, you changed your thought. So at that moment, they're constantly changing their thought. And so what happens when I read the energy is I kind of get the big picture of what's going on in the experience to help them see what they could do differently to help get the relationship to flow better, to help make life be more enjoyable. In a career, I'll see things, even in relationships. If I see red, that's usually a warning that something's not right. If I see they'll show me colors or signs, like if it's flowing or a slash in the energy line, that means the relationship's ending. Spikes means that there's a lot of challenges. So the angels will show me different things in these energy lines to help me to educate the person on what they could do differently or better to improve the relationship. Like if they're going on an interview for a job and they start telling me about the different jobs, I'll see which one has more light around it, which tells me that the opportunity for having the interview and potentially getting the job is greater than that of which does not have light around it. And once a decision is made, then the angels can tell me yes or no, this person has made the decision, like, for example, in the job, if they're getting hired or not. But before that decision is made, it's called speculating, and I don't do stuff like that. That's crystal ball reading. It's like, what's the chances of you getting this job versus not getting this job? I won't, that my integrity won't do that. But what I can do is see, oh, this has a ton more light, or I'll see a number like you're going to go on 3 different job interviews. And I've had this happen with one lady where she kept getting flustered and I kept seeing the number 3. And every single time she went on one job interview, like before the third one, she would get her hopes up. But I kept seeing like a flat line or dim light. I'm like, no, I'm not sure that one's going to be it, until after she went on the interview, I would see there's a dim light. And I kept seeing 3. And then she went on the second one. And then she came back and said, what do you think? And I looked into the energy. I'm like, I keep seeing 3. Then she went on the third interview and she came back and I saw a bright light. She got that job and she loves it. It was 10 times better than the first 2 jobs.
Excellent. That's a very interesting way to do your readings. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And for those watching, if you would like to get a reading with Angel Reader, she is available on mysticsense.com. So make sure to head over to the website. It should be linked in the description of this video as well. Check out her profile, add her to your favorites list, and get your own angel reading with Angel Reader on our platform anytime.
And also, if I can interject, it's very important for you to understand that I do best in my readings with people that have a loving, open heart. So if you're in a judgmental place or blaming place, I'm probably not going to be the best person for you, because angels fly. We don't ground into those denser energies. So I don't do things like black magic or lost and found or heavy drama or victim consciousness. I work in these higher realms to help you get into these higher places of amazing relationships, an amazing job that you want to be happy with. Improving even more of your finances by shifting helping you to shift your consciousness. So angels focus more on the lesson behind what you're going through, not the prediction of future timelines or what they're thinking or feeling and so forth. So it's very important. My integrity is just to make sure that you realize it's the energy behind the experience that I'm going to look at rather than the experience at hand, and then future telling and so forth.
Thank you for sharing that. Are you available on any schedule? Like, is there a time when people could most likely catch you online?
I'm on a lot. On the only times that I'm probably not on a regular basis would be like a Saturday would be a time that I'm pretty sporadic because it's a day that I like to play or do errands and so forth. And then Sunday is a time that I usually come on towards the afternoon. But during the week, you'll usually catch me around 8:30, 9 in the morning until around 6. Until around 6 in the evening, Pacific Standard Time. So, and people that are regulars, they always know how to find me on this. I mean, they just know by routine, like, I know she's going to be on this time. I know, just get right in and so forth. So.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that too. So definitely head over to Mystic, find Angel Reader, add her to your favorites list so that you can get your own personal session with her about what the angels have in store for you. Is there anything else you'd like to add on our topic of angels?
Well, I first want to say how much fun this is and how much I appreciate you. And, it's so important to understand that life is a journey. You're going to get to that place eventually. You begin and then you get to the end. And then your journey is complete, right? And it's so important to understand that it's not what you think it's about. It's more about what love and wisdom and how you treat others and what you're doing on this planet to make a difference that you're going to take when you leave this planet. You don't take the money. You don't take any physical belongings. And so when you're learning in this school of earth, it's so important to remember to always take things to a higher place of love. It's so easy to get caught up, in hate or anger or blame when someone does something that feels unkind, right? But if you take the higher place, take the higher road, take the higher place of consciousness. And one of the things I've just learned, they're talking to me the whole time, by the way, what I just heard is, and I also do channel Christ. So for those that have a relationship with Christ, I do also channel Christ. As Christ, I'll never forget this. Can I take a minute to share this? It was such a beautiful experience. I was living at Arizona at the time. It was a 1-year experience, right? And this lady came up to me and she goes, "Oh, you got to come to this event." And I, of course, as an angelic vibration, my first question is, "Oh, is it upbeat and fun?" "Oh, yeah, you're going to have so much fun. It's positive and inspirational." I'm like, "Okay, then I'm there." And I get there and people are focused in on all of their victim consciousness and their problems, and they're just crying. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, where is the fun and the play and all of that stuff? And, the leader is like feeding all of this stuff. And I'm like saying to myself, this is not for me. And all of a sudden Christ comes and goes, "Oh my gosh, look at those beautiful white flowers on the trees." And it was blooming, right? And I'm looking at it and goes, "Oh, and look at that bird. Look at how it's just singing and flying all over the place." And I started focusing on the bird. And I was so happy. I was like feeling so much love. And then Christ says, "Now get up and say it's time to leave." So, of course, I follow instructions and I get up and I say, "It's time for me to leave." And the leader got really offended and said something. I can't remember what he said, but he said something. And I said, "You know what? Normally I would have sat in this and left depressed because in the past I wouldn't have loved myself enough. But I love myself so much and know that I choose to be happy. And although I know you're making a difference and you're touching other people's lives, it's just is not something that I feel that is necessary for me to stay. And that I love myself to be honest with integrity and get up and leave. And about 4 people stood up and they started applauding me. And then, of course, I left. And the whole purpose of sharing this story is that if we give our power to what's in front of us that we feel is not serving us with joy, and we get caught up in judging it or hating it or blaming it for our own internal joy, then we're stuck in that story. But if we use our imagination and we start to focus in on things that bring us joy, things that we're grateful for, then we're loving ourselves to know that we're choosing to be happy and not choosing to focus in on what's in front of us that's making us feel unhappy. And then we have enough courage to move from that experience with greater love and compassion for whatever it is that the person or the situation is at hand.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. It's very interesting that sometimes we're being experiences and they're just not for us. And sometimes there's not a reason why either. And like I had attended a church for like a year or over a year that I really liked the church. I agreed with them, it was positive, but I just felt like it wasn't where I belonged. No reason for it, nothing. It just didn't really resonate with me where I am. And it did at first, but then over the course of that year, I just no longer felt like I needed to be there, so I left. And sometimes that's kind of the case for people, is that it may not be bad, but it's just not for you.
Yeah. You get into a relationship, whether it's at a church or a job, or a relationship, and because you're in earth school growing and maturing, as you become more mature and move through those lessons and you get to a different place, you have a tendency to say a completion comes in, and thereby it's time to move on from that experience, especially if you're in a relationship and they're not growing with you but growing away from you, because the universe has different plans for both involved. That's why it's important to understand that you're not running your life. It's the universe helping you through creating you in the first place, that knows what's best for you. And that's where the true trust and faith comes in. Behind the scenes, in the unknown, the universe, God, Christ, knows more than you, the human mind, knows. Your spirit knows when it's time to move on. But if you let your ego run your life, you won't hear it until you get the universal 2x4 kick, the universal kick that says, you're not listening, so I'm going to wake you up. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, I got it now. So you, in this church situation, just loved yourself enough to say, it's not about the church being bad or good or anything. It's about, I feel complete and it's time for me to move on. And
Yeah.
so that's why it was easy for you to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was confusing at the time because nothing had happened, there was no problems with anyone. And I enjoyed the people there. It just didn't resonate anymore. It didn't bring me joy. It didn't add anything to my life. So I stopped going because I was finished with that section of what I had to learn there.
Yeah. It always intrigues me. It reminded me, I just saw a vision of like 2 people being in a relationship and they just feel like they were growing apart, but there's no hate, there's no animosity. It's just mutual agreement that they've outgrown each other and that they could still be friends, still respect each other, but they don't have to be in a relationship anymore. Wouldn't it be nice if relationships, if they're going to separate, would separate that way rather than hating or blaming the person for their life? You made my life miserable and now I have to support myself by myself, kind of a thing. It's funny when people get caught up in that blaming situation of them feeling like the husband or the wife took care of them, and now that they're not taking care of them, they're blaming them for it. which is pretty sad because now they have to learn how to be more self-sufficient. And to me, that's the gift behind the horse, is that they're learning to take better care of themselves instead of depending on someone else to do it for them.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of power in that independence as well. I think we even touched on that earlier in our discussion, that it's really empowering to say, wow, I can do this on my own.
Yes.
And that could be the lesson right there for you. You're learning how to take back that control, that power of your own life, your own decisions.
Right. There's 3 types of what I call relationship: dependent, independent, and working together, interdependent. So dependent is where you lean on them too much and the other person may feed it, so they enable that codependency, right? Then there's someone that says, I don't need anybody. And they just totally do it by themselves, isolate and so forth. And then you have that interdependent, where they have both of those pulled together in a healthy way. And they're self-reliant and they know how to be together in a relationship by mutually respecting and working together and taking responsibility for their life.
Yes, you explained that very well. So thanks for that insight. So is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers before we wrap up our session tonight?
Well, I look forward to you all coming and having a reading with me as an angel reader. And always know to get the month and day of the person's birthday before you call me if you want a relationship reading. Always come with a happy attitude and a grateful heart, because angels do the best we can to pass the messages on. Always ask questions you want to know answers to, because I don't sugarcoat and I don't lie or tell you what you want to hear. And most importantly, really appreciate all of us, because we're here to support your growth, your wisdom, and do what we can to help you on your journey. And so if you appreciate us, it makes what we do more enjoyable too, than if you don't appreciate us. It takes some of the joy away. And so when you're coming, always remember to come with that attitude of, we're here to help you, and please appreciate that.
Thank you so much. This is Angel Reader from Mystic, so definitely check out the link in the description or go search her on our platform to get your own angel reading with Angel Reader.
And also, before you end, I do chat, phone, and video. I just wanted to.
Okay, excellent. Yes, a lot of people don't do video, or they just do 1 or 2. So that's great to know that you use all 3 of the forms. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Yes, I'm glad, and I hope everyone enjoyed our discussion. Make sure to let us know in the comments. And yes, we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you. Have a great night. Bye.